Hey, welcome to the David Dravenack Show, and today we're going to be talking about aliens, and aliens. Here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the David Dravenack Show, podcast 3. Right now, you're probably looking at your David Dravenack calendar and saying, hey, wait a minute. You started this shit like 3 weeks ago. You promised that you were going to do it a couple times a week, and I don't know, let me just do my math. Logarithm of x over r equals minus 2 over x equals. You're a liar. That's what that equals. That was not a real math equation, pretty sure. Which is stupid because I could have used a real one. Because I'm currently learning calculus and algebra and geometry and physics. That's the thing. That's how you learn how to measure the roll of an inclined angle. Anyway, I know that formula. Initial velocity equals, velocity equals initial velocity plus acceleration times time. Yeah, see? Could have used that, a real equation. But that's a topic for another time. I'm going to do what I hate that other people do. Bring up a topic and then say, I'll get to that later. Some other time. Never happens. And then I get annoyed. But I promise I will talk about how I am currently learning everything I forgot in high school, basically, is what. It's what I decided to do. But that's not what this show is about. Today's show. So for starters, the reason I haven't been doing one 3 times a week like I had planned is because I've been sick. No, boo-hoo, you've been sick. What is it, COVID? No, I never got COVID. Or if I did, I don't know that I did. No, I got worse. I got shitty dentist cleaning sick. I went to the dentist for a cleaning. It was a dentist I hadn't been to before. And for starters, the cleaning was terrible. I should have known to stop it when halfway through the cleaning, she's like pressing on that something you do with your foot. I don't know anything about dentistry, but she was pressing this thing on her foot and then complaining how it never works. And she even did the stupid thing, Mondays. And I'm like, what? Mondays? Should I have not scheduled an appointment on Monday? Because the dentist told me you're only here on Mondays and Wednesdays. So for future reference, Wednesdays then, because Mondays, the machines that clean my teeth break and you're still going, I guess. She did a shitty job. Terrible job. And I called back to say, like, I don't think she cleaned my teeth that well. You know how I know? Because when I looked in the mirror, I still saw tartar. So, and yeah, it's been a while, with the whole COVID thing and all that, but, I don't think she did a good job. But worse than that, and then they're like, hey, you want to come back in? Like, no. What am I, fucking masochist? I want to go back into the same lady that did such a shitty job. And by the way, now she'll know that's why I'm back in there? Because I'm sure she'll do the math. Like, wait a minute. Mondays? No. Also, you weren't supposed to come back for 6 months. So why are you back here? And that's when she'll hear the whispers of the nurses in the background, like, oh, yeah, he's coming back because she did a shitty job. She's known for doing that. Marlene, she's totally known for not cleaning people's teeth well. I don't even know why we have her at this dentist office. I don't know. That's what would happen. And then she would hear that and go to town on my gums like nothing before. Like, oh, what? You don't think I did a good job? I'll take this. But worse, she gave me a fucking cold. I don't know that it's her, but I'm just going to assume that in addition to her shoddy dental hygienic training, she's also carrying viruses with her and giving them to people. She's like Dr. Death, but, much milder. Anyway, so I got a fucking cold. It's been over a month. And the last 2 podcasts I did not like how I sounded. I didn't like how I sounded, and you don't know it, but I had to edit the shit out of it to get rid of all the sniffles. Because nothing worse than listening to a podcast of somebody in your ears, and they're sniffling, and they're making weird breathing noises. Ugh. I've turned off podcasts of people that I want to listen to, like they're a guest, and I have to turn it off because I can't. No. One too many loud breaths. I just can't. I'm sorry. So I had to go through and edit out all the sniffles, which is super annoying. And part of the problem, too, was you'll notice I changed my mic. I was going to use, 10 years ago, I was using a condenser mic, but it's a USB mic that you have to plug in and to a computer. And I don't like recording on the computer because too many times I've been burned where I am recording away and I'm coming up with some genius stuff and I look over and it hasn't been recording for a half an hour. So I got a personal recorder that records directly, but not through USB. But that's what, if you watch the last 2 podcasts, you would have seen that's what I had. But the problem with those is the microphones are too good. They picked up too much extraneous noise. They were picking up the sniffling, and I sounded super nasally. I just didn't like it. So I thought, all right, well, now what do I do? Just not do a podcast? That was my plan. Hoping I would heal, but nope. Still no. So I'm doing one. But I thought, what are my options? And I have this microphone that I bought. It's been around, and I've used it as a practice microphone for stand-up. And so because of that, I assumed it was a piece of shit. Like I figured, well, I wouldn't have bought a good microphone just to practice. So I must have bought like a cheap, Mr. microphone. But I tried to do some test recordings in this one, and I thought, it doesn't sound that bad. And then I looked it up, and I was like, holy shit, this is like a $150 microphone. Why do I have this? Why do I have this? But I think what happened was, back in the day, I used to take my remote recorder to stand-up clubs and do podcasts with other stand-ups. And so I must have bought a good microphone to use for that. And thus, here we are. I am going to buy a better microphone. Because, of course, I made the mistake of looking up what Joe Rogan uses. And I figured I'd look that up, and it would be like $10,000 or something insane. But it turns out it's only $400, which is still expensive for a microphone, but that's within range. So someday I'll save the money for that. I got other shit to buy, but someday. So that was a little too inside baseball. You didn't need to know any of that. I guess I'm just explaining why, if I still sound nasally and congested, it's because of the stupid dentist. And then at that rate, I'll go to the ear, nose, throat doctor, and my teeth will fall out. You know, because of the irony. I go to the dentist to be healthier, and I get sick. And why am I explaining that? Ugh, don't be that comedian. Tell a joke and then explain why it's funny. I'm doing it now. What the fuck? So, maybe I'm purposely stalling, because the next thing I'm going to talk about is a little bit tough. It's dividing the country, quite frankly. I believe 100% that aliens are living amongst us disguised as humans. How do I know? Because I got proof. It's not proof I can share with you. It's in my head, but it's proof, and I will tell you this story. Oh, you sit back, grab a hot chocolate, get ready. So I go into a Thai place, and I walk in, and there's a family in the middle of the restaurant. A family, a morbidly obese man, a morbidly obese woman, and their morbidly obese child. And in front of them are a bunch of plates of food, like 8 plates of food. They were clearly doing family style. All right, no big deal, whatever, right? So, not important to the story just yet. But as I'm waiting for my food, I start to hear bizarre noises coming from these people. I hear, no. Well, first off, it was weird that they felt like they were on a mission to finish all the food. There was no conversation, which why bother eating in the restaurant? Why not just get takeout, take it home? But they were shoveling the food in. Like, yeah, it was. But so while they were shoveling the food in, they kept making these weird, like, and it was the guy, but it was also the lady. They both were doing it. So I took notice of that as weird. No reason to believe they're aliens just yet, but I thought it was weird. Like, what is happening? But then the woman breaks into, I don't know what to call it. She stops her eating and then it caused me to turn around because she all of a sudden, and I'm not exaggerating. It was that. I turned around because, of course, what the fuck? And at first I thought, well, is she hearing impaired? Is that what I'm hearing? But I've heard hearing impaired people talk, and this was not. No, this was primal, angry, like she was mad that he took the last egg roll or something, and it was very bizarre. Which now, so bizarre that I started feeling like I was getting punked. Like this was a TikTok challenge or something. You hear about that. Like people go on the subway and act insane and they film it and they want to see how other people react to it. It felt that bizarre to me. But I didn't see any cameras. They didn't appear to be mugging or anything. Plus, they didn't seem like that. The type to be doing some weird existential Andy Kaufman-esque thing. But, and then she sort of simmered down like, and then they both went back to shoveling food in. Meanwhile, the daughter, she's just on the phone this whole time and not recording. No, I made sure to check in case it was a TikTok thing, but no. She's on her phone doing her own thing and they're just shoveling the food in. And this went on for the entire 15 minutes I was there. Like, I was starting to get sick to my stomach, to be honest. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Like, you know that feeling when suddenly, like, did they just turn up the heat in here? Or you start getting claustrophobic. Like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. I gotta step outside or something. Because I'm starting to feel a little sick at what. So anyway, so if it's not a TikTok thing, they're not doing it on purpose to like get a reaction from the one other person in the restaurant. My only logical conclusion is that they're aliens who have decided to take over Earth or something. And they thought to themselves, like, well, they looked at America and said, well, we want to disguise ourselves as humans. So why don't we try and look like them? And what they did is they got some sort of human fat disguise, I guess, because they're like, well, this is what most of them look like, so why don't we do that? And yeah, I mean, I kept looking for like their antennae or maybe like a tail or something, but no, just as they're shoveling away, making these noises, that's when I deducted that they must be aliens who also maybe they thought they had a grasp on our language. Maybe when she was making those noises in her head, like, you know how when there's a drunk person who they think that they're coherent, but in reality they're slurring and they're stumbling all over. Like maybe these aliens thought they had the English language down, but in reality, what it sounded like was I don't even know how they ordered their food, quite frankly. Maybe the daughter is actually human. Like, you know how vampires have familiars where they'll have a human do their bidding with the promise they'll turn them into a vampire at some point. Maybe that was the case. Like, we're going to take over the earth. Although I don't know how she could have understood them. Maybe a mind thing. But they said, if you help us order our food or whatever, we won't kill you when we take over the humans or something. So anyway, that's my proof that aliens are real. And I know you're saying, you know what? I don't know what you're saying. I have no idea what you're saying. I hate when commercials do that. They'll start a commercial and say, they'll tell me what I'm doing. Like, you're just sitting there reading a book. No, I'm not. Why are you telling me what I'm doing? And definitely stop telling me what I know what you're thinking. They do that a lot in commercials. Anyway. But you might be saying, I guess I should say, is Dave, you're fat shaming. How dare you? And I say to that, no, I'm not, because they're aliens. There are aliens who obviously overdid it with their human costume and who apparently really like Thai food. I guess. Also, I don't subscribe to this new world order of we're not allowed to point out the fact that being morbidly obese is not good for you. Because, I mean, if they were human, which they are not, They were aliens, 100%. But if they were human, what I was witnessing was two people committing suicide. Not quickly, but they definitely were doing it. There's no way those two make it past 60. Not with what I saw. If I saw them standing on a ledge about to jump, I would be obligated to try and talk them off the ledge, right? But, oh, no, I could never say to them, hey, you think maybe 6 plates and take a breath in between. Have a conversation. But I also don't like it because now this is the government stance as well, which is being morbidly obese is no longer anything you can control. There are people from the government who are saying, you can't control it. Diet won't work. Exercise won't work. Either you are or you aren't. And the only thing you can do is take our pill. That we're not really sure why it works, but it'll curb your appetite. So take that. No. Don't do the diet. Don't do the exercise because you can't help it. Are you not listening to what I'm saying? I am a government person who is telling you there's nothing you can do. And I think the part that bothers me the most about it, because right now you're like, Dave, you're so mean. I think the part that bothers me is I am a recovering alcoholic. And never once has anyone told me I was a hero. Never once has anyone said, Dave, you go. You embrace your alcoholic positivity. No. Instead, every single person I've ever known shamed me and shamed me and shamed me. And most of all, me. I shamed myself. I hated myself. But you know what? It got me sober. Now, if everyone was running around telling me like, Dave, oh, no, you don't need to feel bad about your alcoholism. That's perfectly fine. No, in fact, it's fine. And if anyone dares tell you differently, you have reason to get them fucking fired. Your doctor says, hey, Dave, we did a scan on your liver, and if you don't stop, you're going to be dead in 5 years. The New World Order would be, hey, you're not allowed to tell me that. How dare you? I'm going to go home and put what you said on Twitter and then watch as all the people tell me how great I am for being an alcoholic. So that's why I personally am not a fan of that. But it doesn't even matter because they were aliens. So there you go. And I'm going to take a sip of water. Bubbly. It's like pop if you don't want to get fat. Because it's seltzer water. Also, I'm not really worried about being canceled because I am cancel proof. Now, I'm not cancel proof in the way that Dave Chappelle or Ricky Gervais or an Adam Carolla is cancel proof, because they're good and they're popular and they have a fan base. This is how I am cancel proof. So there's a thing called dead naming, right? Where if somebody's transitioned, you are not allowed to bring up who they were before. In fact, if you did, back in the day, if you did that on Twitter, they would ban you. Your account would be banned. I don't know how it is now with Elon Musk, and now that's X and not Twitter, so maybe fat shaming is, or not fat shaming, whoa, dead naming is, or maybe both. Fat shaming and dead naming are back in vogue. I don't know. I haven't been on X. But anyway, the point is, it's terrible. You're not supposed to do it. Makes you a monster. Okay? So I can't refer to Caitlyn Jenner as who she was before. That is 100% evil. So, and speaking of Ricky Gervais, if you want to hear a good bit about that exact thing, check out his special, Humanity, on Netflix. I guess I thought I'd get paid for that unendorsed endorsement or whatever. But back to how I'm not cancelable, how I'm cancel proof. So, I right now declare that I identify as David Dravenack a good person. I am no longer Dave Dravenack, that piece of shit. Oh man, the things that dude fucking said. I am not. I have transitioned from that guy, Dave Dravenack, to David Dravenack, a good person. So don't you dare go looking up at what Dave Dravenack did or even bring up his name, because you will be dead naming me, and therefore you're just as bad of a monster as that guy was. Yeah. So there you go. And I'll just keep updating it like every month. So like a month from now, I'll say, I now identify as David Dravenack with an umlaut over my name, who is a good person. So you cannot bring up anything David Dravenack without the umlaut said, because that's dead naming. And how dare you? How fucking dare you? So now I'm really going to get into the topic that is dividing the nation. Lots of talk lately about aliens. I mean, Dave Dravenack from before was talking all about fucking aliens and fat shaming and all kinds of shit. What an asshole that guy was. But lots of talk about aliens, kind of dividing the country in half as to whether or not you believe aliens are visiting us or whether or not you believe aliens are not visiting us. Now, I do not believe aliens are visiting us. However, a lot of people who do are not dumb. They're not quackpots. They're not insane. They're not flat earthers. They're normal people that I respect, who I find intelligent, who just happen to believe that we are being visited by aliens. And they have what they would call proof of this fact, or whatever. I don't know. I don't know that I would call it a fact, but they have their proof. Enough that they're not coming at this from an insane angle. So what I thought is, what if I approached this from their point of view? Okay? I run down their arguments and just kind of explain why I don't quite believe in them. Or maybe I'll work through the arguments, and by the end of this, I'll have convinced myself that aliens are real, because they totally are, those two people in that Thai restaurant. Ah, crap. At this moment, right now, I identify as David Dravenack with an umlaut. I was hoping I would be able to go a little longer before I had to break out the umlaut, but so let's go through it. Let me take a sip of water. This one's gonna be a doozy. Buckle in. I don't know why they say that. I don't know why they say buckle in. I don't know why they tell you to sit down when you're about to get bad news. Especially if the bad news is, oh, there's a tiger behind me that's about to maul you. And now that you're sitting, you just lost a couple seconds running. So, all right, so arguments for aliens. Let's start with the first one that drives me insane. And that is the argument that this asteroid named Oumuamua that was observed coming through our solar system about 5 years ago-ish. This is proof there's aliens. Okay. And now what drives me nuts about that is, okay, so there's two camps of any source of information. There is the camp that gets their information from sensational places, or they get it in bits and chunks and they don't follow through or do any research. They take it all as true. And then there's my camp where I do astrophotography. I'm obsessed with space. 90% of the podcasts I listen to are about astrophysics, about astronomy, cosmology, quantum mechanics. So I know things about this asteroid that the average person coming at me telling me this is proof of aliens does not know at all. They can find out, easily look it up, but they kind of get the sensationalized facts and then stop there. So here are some of the things that I've heard. Number one, Oumuamua came dangerously close to Earth. Oh my Lord, it came so close to Earth. Probably because it was an alien ship that wanted to scope us out. The reality is it was 21 million miles away from Earth, which, for context, the moon is 250,000 miles away. So I'm going to do the math. Let's do another equation. Let's see. Velocity equals initial velocity plus half acceleration times squared. I got that one wrong. Plus, it doesn't even fit for what I'm saying, because I would need to do just simple math to figure out that 21 million miles is like 80 times farther away from us than the moon. So, or is that right? I don't know. But 8 times? Yeah, whatever. The point is, it did not zoom by Earth, taking snapshots and looking at humans. That did not happen. So that's number one. Then I hear things like, so this thing comes in, it's zooming in so quick that astronomers don't even have time to really look at it. It's going so fast. That didn't happen. It was around long enough for people to observe it for 11 whole days, to get data on it, to figure out what it was doing. So I wouldn't call that zoomed by so fast. Also, I hear stuff like, came in, zoomed in so fast, then it just did a U-turn and headed in the other direction. Oh, and before I forget, the close to the Earth argument, as far as context goes, there is an asteroid coming for us called Apophis that will be so close that it will be in between the moon and the Earth, which I believe it's 2028. So if you want to get your schedules together and get ready for dying, because it's a very good possibility. Not really, but if that thing veers off course for some reason, ah! But you can bet I will be taking pictures of that thing if it's possible. Oh, yeah. Hopefully it'll get so close that it actually goes through the atmosphere but misses Earth, because that would be one hell of a show. Anyway, I got sidetracked. My point is, I hear things like Oumuamua came in, did a U-turn, headed the other direction. Which, when they say that to somebody else, the somebody else who doesn't also know says, oh my God, well, of course it's aliens, because, well, that's crazy. That's insane. Of course. How could that even happen? And if that had happened, I too would say, of course, aliens. Because now that thing has defied the laws of physics. So either there's new physics that we're not aware of, which is possible, could explain dark matter. Anyway, or it didn't do that at all. What it did was it went by us. And here's the part that everyone latched onto, and it's specifically a certain person who I'll get to in a second, which is why people that don't know are running with this. What it did was it began speeding up, and not because of gravity. So it did have astronomers shaking their head and I said shaking, but I was scratching my head on video in case you were watching. It had them scratching their head like, well, that's interesting. Now, it wasn't doing anything crazy if it were a comet. If it were a comet, it was doing normal outgassing, which would cause it to speed up as it passed by the sun. But they didn't see the telltale signs of a comet. They didn't see the coma behind it. It didn't appear to be ice. So for that reason, it was a head scratcher. Like, well, that's bizarre for sure. But it didn't pick up acceleration instantly. It didn't just all of a sudden start traveling at light speed. It slightly sped up in a way that, if it was just an asteroid, was a little bizarre. Definitely not a reason to start calling it an alien spaceship. Because here's the thing. Even though that was bizarre, Oumuamua hasn't done anything really crazy. We still know where it is 5 years later. If we wanted, we could send a probe to it and find out what it really is, except for it would take 100 years, so it's not worth it. Astronomers would rather just wait for the next interstellar thing to come through. I guess that's the other reason why it's considered a big deal, because it did come from another part of the galaxy. So that was also weird, right? But, it's not zigzagging all over the place. It's not defying physics in any way that couldn't be explained. Right now, the hypothesis is that it could be a part of a planet that broke off, because it had a weird shape too, like shaped like a cigar. And the outgassing could be nitrogen, and so you wouldn't really see a coma. But here's the part that's the most frustrating, is the reason that people who don't know better and didn't really do any research believe everything about this being an alien is because of a guy called Avi Loeb, he's a Harvard astrophysicist. He's been there for a very long time. He has contributed in writing a lot of papers. He's a very well-respected astrophysicist from Harvard. So he's running around telling people that this thing's alien aircraft. Well, what's the layman person going to do? They're going to believe it. It's part of the authority bias, which I'll get into later, where we must believe somebody because they're an authority. We have to believe there are UFOs because, and by the way, I'm calling them UFOs. Fuck this UAP bullshit. We have to believe that there are UFOs because somebody in the military saw it. Somebody in the military, well, they have a higher status than the rest of us, so clearly they're telling the truth, or they can't be mistaken. So this guy, being an astrophysicist from Harvard, has normal people going, well, of course, if he's saying it, then it must be true. Even I fell for it a little bit, because I remember when I discovered this guy, who I'd never heard of him before, and I've traveled in those circles. Never knew who this guy was. But I heard him on Joe Rogan, and he's talking about how this thing is alien. And I was a little compelled, like, all right. I fell for it. I said, well, this guy's a Harvard astrophysicist? You sure? Because he's saying some pretty crazy stuff, but he must know he must know the science. He must know what he's talking about. But unlike where everyone else goes, because I also knew Joe Rogan wasn't going to be able to contradict or question anything he was saying, because Joe Rogan doesn't know that much about it. So instead, he was just like, whoa. But I decided I needed more information. So I looked up this guy, Avi Loeb, and I said, is he on any other podcast with somebody who's a little more knowledgeable on outer space? And I found it. He was on Sean Carroll, Mindscape. Sean Carroll's Mindscape. There's another plug. Sean Carroll is a theoretical physicist, and he knows his shit. So I said, if somebody's going to get to the bottom of this, certainly he will. I listened to it with excitement to get to the bottom of this Oumuamua being an alien ship. And what I discovered was Avi Loeb was saying verbatim everything he said on Joe Rogan, down to the stupid jokes. And I said, wait a minute, what's this shit? And every time Sean Carroll tried to question something, he dismissed it, went right back to his script, down to the stupid jokes, and at some point Sean Carroll gave up trying to question it and just basically became a lecture that Avi Loeb was giving that could have been anywhere because it was exactly the same shit. And that's when I said, okay, now I see what's going on. This guy's full of shit. He's got an objective, and his objective, which I know now, 5 years later, is to sell books and do nothing but push the fact that this is an alien craft, and that's it. But the problem is, a bunch of people believe in him, therefore they're coming at me talking about how Oumuamua is an alien ship, and I just saw, while I was thinking about this podcast today, a notification came up on the news telling me how there's new evidence of the Loch Ness Monster. Now, how would that make it into the news unless we are now in a world where Harvard astrophysicists can run around talking about how asteroids are alien ships, and of course people are going to believe that. So, and it's a shame. It's a shame because all the people I listen to who are in the science community feel bad for this guy because he was respected and now he's the laughingstock of the community. He is. Some people can't say so because he's a laughingstock who has a lot of power still, but behind his back, everyone's saying, like, this guy's lost his marbles. He's lost them. His marbles. Can we even still say that phrase? And not because it's offensive, but just nobody plays with marbles anymore, right? Hell, I'm 50 years old and I didn't play with marbles. I think they only played with marbles back in the day when television was black and white. And marbles was much more exciting than black and white television. So the scientific community has basically written this guy off. And I feel like he's had to double down. He's gone flat earth status. And by that, I mean, there's a documentary called Beyond the Curve, which I highly recommend. It's a documentary about flat earthers, but it's from the perspective of flat earthers. So it's not like a hit piece. I mean, it is a little. Like, the people who made it do not believe in flat earth, but they weren't disrespectful. And throughout the documentary, they were talking about how these guys, like, so they'd talk about the flat earthers, but then they would cut away to scientists and stuff and psychologists. And one of the things they said was, yeah, a lot of these guys, once they get in deep, even if they wanted to, they can't get out. They've already alienated their friends and their family. I mean, there's a person that my mom knows whose son constantly bothers her about flat earth, like to the point where she's stressed about it. Oh no. Shit. Oh, fuck. Well, my the storage on my recording device just went out. Conveniently, because I've had plenty of storage. We know what that's about. It's the government trying to stop me from speaking the truth. about aliens. So, anyway, what was I talking about? I don't know. Beyond the Curve, good documentary. Check it out. Best part of the whole documentary, and it's not really a spoiler because it's not like a movie. At the end, these two guys set up a pretty simple experiment where you shoot a laser across a distance from one point to another through a hole. If the Earth is flat, the laser will go through both holes, hit the cameras on both sides, and at the very end of the movie, and if it's not, obviously, if the Earth is curving, then the laser will miss the camera. So at the end of the movie, you just hear the one guy go, "Hey, you got the camera on?" And the other guy goes, "Yeah." And then you hear the first guy go, "Shit." And then the movie ends. It's so great. Because that moment when they realize, like, oh, everything we've ever believed is wrong. Which brings me back to the Avi Loeb thing. Now, does he admit he's wrong? Or does he just keep plowing forward? He'll plow forward because there's money to be made. The poor flat earther, his only friends now are other flat earthers, so he's got no choice but to just go down with that. So, all right, so that was Oumuamua and why it is not proof of aliens at all. At best, it's weird. It should be studied. We can't, but the next one that comes through, we should be a little more on top of it or something, but not aliens in any way. And are not doing the things that Avi Loeb is running around saying that it's doing. Okay. So that's point number one. So second thing is, all right, argument is there are aliens visiting us and oh, look at all the proof. There are people testifying in Congress. There's all this video proof. There are people of high authority who we cannot question who are claiming that they saw stuff that has to be true. So let's start at the beginning of, are aliens visiting us? Forget all the proof stuff. Forget all that. Let's just think on a Bayesian level, do we really believe that aliens are visiting Earth? Well, first off, it would mean that they have mastered some sort of interstellar travel. For us, it would take 60,000 years just to get to our nearest star. These aliens have come from who knows where. But even our closest star, that's a hell of a trek. So they probably have figured out a way to manipulate space or travel faster than light or go back in time, wait, I don't know. Whatever they would be doing to get here is highly advanced. However, they have no interest in really communicating with us because if they did, then they would. Right? They drop down on the White House lawn, that cliche, and say, we're here. But they're not doing that. So travel all this way, all this technology. They don't want to be seen, but they're not very good at it. They're not very good at it. For all their technology, every once in a while, oops, we made ourselves visible. Crap. Leonard, how many times have I told you not to lean on the button? The anti-cloaking button. We really got to have a group meeting because this is happening way too much. Way too much, Leonard. Next thing you know, you're going to be down on Earth, eating food like a maniac in a Thai restaurant, making crazy noises that some guy named David Dravenack with an umlaut is going to realize you're alien. So we're supposed to believe they don't want to be seen, but they're not very good at it. Also, what's going on, aliens? If you really are visiting us, why can't you decide on a single shape of your ship? Is it a disc? Is it a sphere? Is it a ball? Is it a tic-tac? Is it a triangle? Is it a triangle inside of a circle? Is it an energy field? Is it a bolt? Is it narrow? Get your shit together, aliens. At least narrow it down to like 3. Because according to all the sightings, these ships are all different types of shapes and sizes. So that would either mean that there are aliens of different areas who, sorry, just had a coughing fit. The government really doesn't want me to talk about this. They've somehow made it so that I lose storage space and I'm going into coughing fits. Anyway, aliens, get your shit together. Because either there are different aliens from different parts of space with different shapes of ships who have all decided not to communicate with us and I guess are just hanging out. I mean, that is one of the hypotheses, is the zoo hypothesis, where aliens are just watching us like we watch animals in a zoo. But, so it's either that or it's a single alien race who I guess had a contest and said, we're going to Earth. Anyone want to come up with a shape of a ship? That's the one we're going to use. And then they had just too many good ones. So everyone gets a ship shape. Is that where that phrase comes from? Ship shape? I'm going to ship shape up this place. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If, I'm a betting man, it doesn't make a lot of sense that they're visiting us, but there's these weird anomalies, contradictions, I guess you would say. Also, the other thing is, all the proof, so-called proof, is very suspect. There is not one single piece of evidence that is 100%, yeah, absolutely, it's an alien. Absolutely. And I say, why? This seems impossible to me, given the fact that at any time on Earth, 24/7, there is somebody with a telescope and a camera pointed into space taking pictures. Every single second, right now, and right now. Between all the amateur astronomers like myself and astrophotographers, not to mention all the professional astronomers with their telescopes, not to mention the radio telescopes and the space telescopes, well, those don't count. Let's assume aliens are inside our atmosphere. Nary a picture. And we could get one. I could get one. If an alien were perched in one of my pictures, even for 10 seconds, I would have a high-definition picture of an alien ship. I mean, I could take a picture of the ISS where I could see the aliens looking out the window. I said aliens. I meant astronauts. And neither of those are true. No, I can't see the aliens looking. God, I said it again. The astronauts looking out the window. But I could take a really clear picture of the ISS, and you would have no doubt that that's what it was. So if an alien ship was in my picture, 100% I would have proof of aliens, and I'd be famous. But I don't have that, and nor does anybody. Nobody has that, right? And I was told once that, you don't have good enough equipment. You don't know what you're talking about. All right, maybe that's true. Maybe I don't have good enough equipment, even though I do. I mean, I could take fucking pictures of shit that's light years away in clarity, but all right, fine. But you know who does have the equipment? Plenty of it? A little group called SETI. A group created by the government whose entire purpose is to find aliens. That's it. They've veered off a little now because they've lost funding because they haven't found aliens, and even the government's like, it's been 50 years. So even the organization who has access to every single telescope on Earth, the best ones, every single radio telescope on Earth, all of the space telescopes out in space, none of them have found aliens. And believe me, they would like to find aliens. Even the head of SETI said this whole alien UFO thing is nonsense. This guy testifying in Congress is ridiculous. So the argument that I don't have good enough equipment doesn't hold water, since there are agencies that have the best equipment who want to find aliens. They don't not want to find them. And they have yet to do it in 40 years. So that doesn't bode well for the argument. Also, not to mention the billions of people with cell phones. Nobody can get a shot of an alien craft that isn't ambiguous. I mean, I even had my own UFO sighting recently. I was outside, which is where you would have to be, and I see this thing in the sky, and at first I think airplane, but it wasn't moving like an airplane. It was kind of slowly moving sort of a ziggy-zaggy type way. So then I think drone, but even that, it wasn't moving herky-jerky like a drone. So then, of course, my mind went to aliens. That can be the only other explanation. And if I pulled out my phone, took pictures of it, and then walked away, posted videos online, most people would have believed that I seen aliens, and it would just go into the plethora of bad proof that aliens exist. And the reason why I say people might have believed me is because what it turned out to be is not something that you would have jumped to naturally. What it turned out to be, because I just kept watching it as it continued to drop, and there was this flickering, and it was weird for sure. And then eventually it fell, and when I went over to it, it was one of those lanterns that you light and then set off into the sky, hoping that it'll make it across the world with your message or whatever. That's all it was. But if I had stopped and not bothered to follow through with it and then posted it online, it would be yet another UFO sighting, UAP sighting that somebody would now have to debunk, and half the people would go, there, see, David Dravenack with an umlaut saw aliens. He's got it on his phone. And then the other half would say, no, it was one of those lanterns or whatever. But so, no real good photographic proof. Even the stuff from the military, which is what everyone's kind of hanging their hat on, most of that has been, I won't say debunked, because I don't know for sure, but theories that are reasonable. Right? The Tic Tac video, the triangles, they basically believe those are just stars, the gimbal, all this stuff. I'm not saying that it's not true, but enough doubt that I'm not going to run around saying there's aliens. You put a gun to my head and say, are there aliens based on this? I'm going to have to say no. 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 Sorry. It's just not good enough. And even the equipment that they have that claims these aircraft dropped 20,000 feet in 1 second, nobody saw that. Equipment saw that. Based on what's happening here in my podcast with all the sort of glitches I'm having, I wonder if man-made equipment can sometimes be faulty. I wonder. Is it possible that the sonar they had was glitchy? Is it possible that because they updated all their software and now conveniently they're seeing UFOs all over the place? I wonder. And then finally, the proof that I'm offered is, hey, this guy, David Grosh, he is testifying under oath there are aliens. He has seen it third hand. Oh, yeah, he has. He knows for a fact that they are holding aliens, so he's heard. 100% there are alien ships. They look like a football field on the outside, but they're really small on the inside. He has hearsay about. That is the least amount of proof there is. Don't give me this shit he's under oath, because what are you going to... I could go under oath and claim I saw an alien, that lantern thing. I would be telling the truth as far as I believe it. So this guy's telling the truth as far as he believes it. And quite frankly, I think what happened is the reason it's all third hand and none of these other guys have come forward is because they were fucking with him. They were fucking with this guy who believes in aliens, and they're like, you know, it'd be funny. Why don't we tell this guy that we have aliens that we are hiding, and then we, yeah, let's tell him that we work on alien spaceships. Yeah. What? Congress? Oh, we never thought he'd do that. We knew he was nuts, but, well, that got out of hand. Whoops. So that's not proof. So still, you have yet to find any reason for me to believe in aliens, that they are visiting us. Sorry. I'm not going to walk around half believing there exists. I have to pick a side. I have to. Sorry. Yeah. It's kind of unfair, too, because I'm using lack of evidence as my evidence, which is kind of shady. I'll admit it. Right? We get into the weird atheist religious person argument. Right? Atheists, their argument is there is no evidence. And a religious person will say, well, I don't know, they'll come up with something. But the truth is, neither person really knows. Not for sure. Nothing drives me more insane than atheists who declare for sure there's no God. Yes, your evidence is very good, but that you don't fucking know. You don't know. It's why I'm agnostic. I admit I don't know. I'm okay with that. And I'll get into that on a different podcast. My religious views or whatever they are. So, and as far as this David Grosh goes, or any of it really, to quote Carl Sagan, extraordinary, I'm going to misquote him because I don't know the quote. Extraordinary, what is it? Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And we got all the extraordinary claims, but we do not have extraordinary evidence. So therefore, I'm not saying it's not true, but it also leaves it open to the fact that it probably isn't. And, right, one of the other arguments is conspiracy. Conspiracy. First off, let me say this. Why are all the alien sightings in the U.S. and all the crashed aliens in the U.S.? What the hell's going on there? Why do they like the United States so much? Is it because we're gullible? Or what is it? But, so that's the other argument you get all the time. It's a big conspiracy. That's why all this hasn't gotten out. Really? Because it would have to be worldwide. Every single nation, every single leader for the last 70 years or whatever would all have to be in cahoots to keep this information silent. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And back to my aliens. Enough technology to get here from God knows where, but crashing all over the fucking place? Get your shit together, aliens. Pick a shape. Pick a ship that doesn't crash so often that we have all these ships everywhere. in hiding, so somebody's been told. And the last reason I'm not a believer of aliens is a thing called the Fermi paradox, which says if given all of the space and all the time that exists, there should certainly be some proof of life forms to the point where it's like overabundant. And yet, nothing. Nothing. And it's based on the theory where humans, we have come a long way in 100 years. So it is not unlikely at all that we will build drones or something that can self-replicate. They'll land on the moon. They'll make more versions of themselves. They'll go to the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, make more versions, go on out of our solar system, make more versions. And exponentially, they will conquer the entire galaxy within like 1 million years, which sounds like a long time, but it is not. Not really. So if we are most likely going to do that, then why hasn't anyone else in 13 billion years done the same thing? We should see that already. And we don't. Which means either there's no aliens and we're the only intelligent species in the universe, which is frightening, terrifying, or there's a thing called the Great Filter, where every time a civilization gets intelligent, they kill themselves, basically. So before they could get to the point of conquering the galaxy, they kill themselves in some way. Experiment gone wrong, war. I mean, we're on the verge of killing ourselves. We're only a couple crazy people away before going back to the Stone Age. And even though humanity wouldn't die necessarily, it'd be another 1,000 years before we got back to where we are now. And if that keeps happening over and over, then even if there are aliens out there and they follow the same pattern we do, then no one can ever really get far enough into space to say hello, which once again goes against the idea that no signs anywhere in space, and believe me, we are fucking looking. We are looking, spending a shit ton of money, yet somehow they're hiding their existence out in space, but then coming to our planet and hanging out and occasionally letting themselves be photographed, but not in a really good way, even though there's a shit ton of cameras and telescopes pointed out into space at all times. And so, yeah. So that was a doozy. Woo! 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 And I'm now going to say right now that I identify as David Dravenack with an umlaut and one of those squiggly things. I think those are the same thing. Maybe not. An umlaut and parentheses. I identify as a good person who believes in aliens. Oh, yeah. Oh, so don't go telling me what that David Dravenack with an umlaut just fucking said, because he's a fucking asshole. Yeah, don't go telling me what he said, because that's also dead naming me, David Dravenack, with an umlaut in parentheses, who's also a good person, and I believe in aliens 100%, and I believe the earth is flat. Okay. Woo! So thanks for listening. Yeah, I don't even need to do an outro. I've wasted enough of your time.